Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Meepolis and this is Literally Graphic. And here we are at the start of another year. Not only another year, but one of those growing number of years where I'm posting my thoughts to YouTube, which does call for a New Year's resolution post, does it not? As I've probably said too many times before, I'm a bit of a weirdo in my real life in that I do religiously make New Year's resolutions because they let me feel good about myself. Not to say that I always accomplish my goals, but I do make progress. And for some reason this triggers my good brain chemicals, which actually doesn't happen too often. Thanks, ADHD. I know most of us are on Booktube because no one else in our life likes books quite as much as we do, but this is the other community I find on YouTube, so there we go. Thank you to everyone else who posts goals videos. As I have done for many years now, my goal for books read on Goodreads is 71 books. I almost always read more, but I'm a firm believer in not expecting an ever-growing number of books read each year, so that's the number I've picked. That said, I've done the math on the number of reviews I want to do this year, and if I continue to talk about new things and not schedule reposts of currently private reviews, I will need to read at least 160 books, not including my series reviews, plus about 40 webcomics. We shall see if that happens. My Goodreads goal stays at 71. Besides that number, I do have one other key goal I set every year, which is to focus on reading at least 30 books with no pictures by people who fulfill some sort of requirement. I focus on books without pictures because they are generally made by fewer people and a bit easier to pin down. Comics, while sometimes created by a single author/illustrator, are often a group project, so I held off on setting goals for them. Stay tuned for more on that later. Previously, I've attempted to focus on Black authors, authors indigenous to Turtle Island, authors from the continent of Asia, and most recently, books by authors from South and Central America, plus the Caribbean and diaspora. Sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail, but I always become more aware of creators from these regions as a result. In 2021, I will be focusing on authors who are from the continent of Africa and the diaspora. I already have a pretty good start on my TBR list, so I'm pretty excited for this. After putting together this year's end-of-year goal wrap-up, I realized I really need to do quarterly updates to keep things more controlled. I've scheduled the first one, and I was very good at staying on my schedule this past year, so that's looking good. As far as goals for my comic book reading, I finally jumped in this past year and started something I call my Black Comics TBR series. Pretty self-explanatory. It's my attempt to bring Black creators into focus both in comics and on Booktube, but lest that sound like I'm doing this for points or whatever, this has led me to pick up some books that I might not otherwise read, but really enjoyed. Reading diversely is very enjoyable, and I will continue to recommend it. The other series that I finally got to join in fairly recently is the A to Z of Queer Lit tag related thing. So yeah, my goal is obviously to post a few more A to Z videos this year as well. If you know any queer comics with you in the title or creators' names, let me know. That is proving to be the hardest letter right now. That said, stating these goals also reminds me of some of my unspoken goals, namely reading and reviewing leftist political comics and working class stuff. Some of these are by Black creators and some feature queer content, but not all. But yeah, if you're interested in this content, stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I'm thinking about increasing my number of videos I post per week again, switching between reviews of translated comics and tagged videos to start on Tuesdays, thanks to alliteration, in the new year, and then maybe taking on webcomics, on Wednesdays of course, in a month or so, but we shall see. Maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, being part of the book and comics community on YouTube and focusing so much on reviews. But it's how I deal with real-world stress. Obligatory disclaimer that while both diversity and own voices are buzzwords that can be used to pretty cynical neoliberal ends, as a white settler who grew up in a very segregated country, surrounded by a lot of homophobia, etc., it has been very important for me to seek out creators that are different from me. It's also, as I already mentioned, fun. I also like to focus on books because I feel like there are some people who put way too much emphasis on learning via other people in real life. and want people to answer any number of prying questions. Books, on the other hand, let people put their thoughts down and share their wisdom in a way that doesn't require as much energy for them. Same with podcasts. People are putting a lot of thought into these things, and my peers just keep asking the same questions of them over and over and over again. And even though I'm anti-capitalist, I also find it a bit unfair that less marginalized people have a history of using the stories of more marginalized people to make money, which is why I try and stay attuned to stuff like Own Voices, but I also don't want to pry into people's lives either. It's a balance and the subject of its own video that I will hopefully be linking now. And to conclude, this past year, I stayed more attuned to the Eisner Awards. I certainly have yet to read all the winners, let alone all the nominees, but it was pretty fun, so I will be trying that again this year. But now that I am done talking about me, what about you? What kinds of goals are you setting this year? I know I'm not the world's best conversationalist, but I do want to know. Bye y'all, keep reading and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.